which was breaking their own rules. Bucky, Mr. Winter Soldier, because they're doing a time machine thing, and Cap was supposed to come back. Like, maybe we should start recording.
Yeah, no, we already are.
Are we already recording?
That's recording. And yes, make sure you're in your mic.
All right. Should I start over? Or?
No, you're good.
Okay.
We've been recording the whole time.
So
Cap comes back. Yeah.
Cap comes back as an old age because they were doing a time machine. Conveniently, they had the time machine at Tony's house where they were doing the funeral.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And that was very lazy, just like wherever they needed it, they just put it there.
Right.
When they showed that it needed a giant like council circle thing with these arches over it. And I don't know how that time machine was able to, they were doing that old style time travel where when you time travel, it actually takes you to the country.
It takes you to the event, not just time, but the event of the thing. Yeah.
And they didn't mention, I thought they would be clever enough to also mention that, like, you couldn't really time travel. You would need a space shuttle to time travel because if you turn on the time machine now, Earth has now rotated and moved.
Well, even if you would need a...
So, so you'd be in a shuttle and it would turn on and then you'd be out in space.
Right.
And then you just come back to Earth to that time.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, too, right? Because the Earth... That's the one thing that is always messed up with time travel because it has to be the only way that it works is in relation to Earth, right?
Yeah.
Because if you did it actually through time, I would think, right? Like you would have the Earth is rotating around the planet, right? And around the sun, the Earth is. So if you go back, if it's May 12th, right, 1994. And you're going to go back even just to September of 2018, the Earth is in a different part of the solar system.
Yeah.
So it's moved.
And also the solar system is gliding.
And that's the whole thing, too. The star and the whole...
So if you turn it on for like a second, you'll wind up at Jupiter.
Yeah, you're going to be way off.
But the thing is, if they would have called it like a slingshot time machine where it's like you boom, boom, and then you just come back.
Yeah.
You turn on the rockets, you go back to Earth. Now you're in that time that you wanted to be.
And that's why, I've always thought like time travel has to be, you have to have an anchor, kind of like a Stargate, right? But it's a time gate. That it has to be there in order for you to figure out where to show up at.
But how would you track it if it's in the past or if it's in the future?
Because it's a physical thing. And you're, you know what I mean? Like just show up in midair.
You could only travel
to where that
to the beginning of whenever that thing was made.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You couldn't go all the way into the past.
But that's only in the past. You can't go into the future.
Correct, because it's not there.
But there's a joke that Bill Nye did. He goes like, we can't travel into the past, but we could go into the future. I just did.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, you can travel technically into the past because you think about it.
Yeah.
If you think about the past, you're traveling to the past.
Yeah.
Okay,
so Cap is supposed to go into the time machine, return the stones, and 10 seconds later, he was supposed to come back by hitting his little button on his wrist. Right?
Yeah.
But they're sitting there waiting, and it's not working. Nobody's worried. All of a sudden, the Winter Soldier kind of goes... He kind of like smiles for a second, and then he looks over to this guy way at a distance on a bench. And he's like, he says to the Falcon guy, he's like, "Why don't you go over there?" Right? And then
why did he think
like,
to do that?
Yeah, the Falcon just goes like, I have a feeling I should go over there too. So he goes over there, and it's Cap, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, I'm an old man now. I'm gonna pass off my my shield to someone." And he's like, "Really?" Yeah. And he's like, "Yeah." And then the Winter Soldier shows up and he walks right next to them. Yeah. And he's like, the Cap is about to give the shield to the Falcon, right?
Yeah.
And it made more sense in the whole arc of the story that the Winter Soldier would get the shield, right?
Yeah.
But
that it should go to
the only way they could make the audience believe this is they cut to the Winter Soldier going like, "Yeah. You take that, man.
Yeah.
You take that. You deserve that because I don't know why."
Wait, the Winter Soldier was nodding.
He's like
to the fact that he was giving it to the Falcon?
Yeah. He was like giving his assurance, giving his approval. Like, "No, man, it's you.
No, it's you. It's you. Yeah.
There's no reason. All right. And
Yeah.
then I was thinking maybe this is the logic is since the Winter Soldier and Captain America are good friends, and he was back in the past that old guy came to him at some point in the past and said all the things that are going to happen, and then still that wouldn't even make sense. What it could have explained that would make him understand that he doesn't deserve the shield.
Yeah. Like what made him go, yeah, I understand that he should get the shield.
The Falcon did nothing in the battle that made him earn it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And speaking of earning, there was nothing shown why he earned the right to hold the hammer.
Right.
Because I've seen a lot of clips of people trying to explain it, and they said, oh, yeah, he's done a lot of good things in the past. And I'm like, but how did he know? Because he did those good things. That he would just
that he could just run up, grab it,
because
do it.
He doesn't just pick it up and like kind of like, hey, this is working. He picks it up and just whoosh, and he immediately summons the lightning to come down on it.
Well, maybe that's why it did it, is because he wasn't like, I hope this is going to work. He needed it, and it worked. And the script said he should have it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And the only reason they had Thor go back in time is so he could be able to have two weapons, because he lost his hammer because he has the axe. And they needed Captain America to be able to use the hammer. So we're like, why would he use the hammer if Thor has the axe? Or like, so they're like, okay, we'll just have him take it back to the future. Right, and now you have a hammer and an axe. So now you have this very stupid scene.
You have time travel, and you said Back to the Future.
Yeah, yeah. And now you have this scene where the Thor goes, "All right, you get the little one," because somehow they switched it again. And so then he throws him the hammer, and then he gets the axe. I don't know. It was just very like that was not necessary.
Yeah,
because Captain America was already kicking butt the way he does.
Yeah.
So there was no reason to have this scene. And the only reason they did it is they had Thor go back to bring back the hammer just so he could pick up the scene. Because they're just not going to make any Avengers films. So they got to do this scene now here in this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they did it totally just because they were like, okay, we're not going to be making any more of these movies, so we need to.
People were
with a big group of people anymore.
People were saying there was a lot of fan service in the thing, and I thought they would at least try to make it a legitimate, logical reason why things are happening, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But it just kind of was. It just kind of was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is I haven't watched that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't profess to it. But we could talk about like the idea of time travels in other ones, right? Because we could review that movie all day and be angry at it. But let's be angry at multiple movies at the same time.
Yeah.
Actually, though, what I was going to talk about just read a book called The Recurrence. Good book.
What recurs?
Time travel. But it's called the Recurrence. That's what it is. It's time travel. And they are in theirs, though, time travel is more like Quantum Leap, where you're just going within the mind, within your own self through the mind, right? And which again is the idea of anchoring. You have an anchor, or you have a thing you're going back to. In this case, it's the human body as the vessel that you're going back to, which is also the same kind of idea that they try to do with The Arrival.
Yeah.
Wait, is it The Arrival, and then there's Arrival?
No,
The Arrival is the one with Charlie Sheen.
The Arrival is Charlie Sheen,
and Arrival is just the one that just came out. With Arrival, it was the same thing, kind of like you travel through time just through your thought. You know, like if you could access certain memories, it takes you back to that time, and then you could go forward or backwards, and it's all a loop or whatever. And that's kind of what they were doing with this book. And it was very interesting because they did the thing that we talked about where, well, if you changed it in the past, everyone knows about it now, right? Because you went back and killed Hitler, and then you came back to now. The world is different now because everyone knows that Hitler did. You killed him before it ever happened. And what was happening, though, in the book is the world would change. All of a sudden, it would just snap and change. But then people would have memory of the other world before it changed. And have so you would have two memories of two different lifetimes simultaneously. And then the one that the dead timeline is what they called it, would slowly fade away because it didn't exist anymore. So it would slowly go away, but you still have a memory.
You mean the memory would fade away?
The memory would fade away as a prominent memory. It would become more like a memory of like, remembering how to tie your shoes. You don't remember how to tie your shoes, but it's there, right? You don't remember how you learned it.
Yeah.
That's how the memory would slowly go away to that point. You still had it though. You still could recall it.
But what if someone documented it before?
If someone recorded it with
a document also fade?
It wouldn't fade. It would literally, the physical things would switch immediately. The mental part.
Oh, so it's like Back to the Future with the match changing from like a, you remember?
Yeah. But instead of it slowly fading, it would literally just switch. Because they had some parts where the government, they secretly made the chair, and then somewhere in the future, the government got hold of the chair, and when one government got it, other governments got it.
Wait, what's the chair?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is that the time machine?
Yeah, the chair is the time machine. The chair, because initially, the whole thing was supposed to be.
When the chair goes 88 miles per hour.
Yes, or if it goes below 50.
Yeah. I'm picturing like a Get Smart kind of like time machine.
Yeah, it's kind of like. Well, the thing is, you go in, you think of a memory, and then you go basically back to that memory, and you're literally. It was kind of weak in that sense. It was like because it was designed for Alzheimer's patients, where you're supposed to be able to go back into their actual memory that they're losing and help them relive it to regain the memory, right? That's what it was supposed to do, but it was supposed to be fake, like a virtual reality of the memory.
So you're putting a fake replacement of a real memory.
Yeah, that's what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But then when they did it, it literally made them go backwards in time, and they changed the memory. And by changing not just the memory, they're changing the actual event. And by doing that, it made it affected the future. And then it was interesting because they actually put more thought into it than what a lot of current time travel.
Well, one thing I noticed with what Hollywood thinks time travel is, it's an excuse to have the character read ahead in the script to know what to have to do at that moment. Yeah. That's what Arrival was, and that annoyed the hell out of me in that movie. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it, well, how do I know what to do? Well, because you just know what to do. Well, because the script said to do that?
Well, she goes into the future. She's talking to the Chinese guy. The Chinese guy says, she goes, you said that thing. You whispered to me. And then she's like, what did I say? And they keep coming back, and then finally she hears it. So now she knows what to do. Now she comes, this huge big professor, teaching everyone about the language of the aliens. Yeah. Only because she did that in the future, and then she told herself in the past.
Well, I think that's what a lot of, exactly. That's problems with Hollywood time travel is it's always a paradox. Yeah. And it's always like, well, wait, no, that doesn't, when you really think about it, that doesn't work to do it. You're doing it, like you're saying, literally to just move the script along. Yeah. Because even Terminator is that. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, you sent it back, and the only way for it to have been made was for it to have come back from the future. And that was the initial
I was just thinking of that. Yeah. Like, I thought of that idea of an alternate kind of like sequel or prequel for it. Now, let's say before they sent Reese back to save Sarah Connor, right? Right. John Connor was already the head of the resistance. Right. Right. That means that it hadn't happened yet. Him going back and making, right. So that means the real John Connor with the mother Sarah Connor, he was probably just like in the military, and the machines became online, right?
Uh-huh.
And he was already a military person, or at least already a guy who had a lot of guns or something,
Okay.
right? And so he was just in the right place at the right time to lead the resistance. But then the Terminators found out about him, so they sent a Terminator back. But then Reese found out about it, or the John Connor did, so they sent Reese back.
Right.
And then that made a different version of what happened, but it still kind of happened because he basically now becomes like the new father of John Connor.
Of John Connor, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And in movies, no matter what time you go back, as long as you sleep with the same person again, you have the exact same child.
Yeah, that was the thing,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Again, another paradox, right? It's like, well, that means John Connor would have existed exactly as John Connor is, no matter who she slept with.
Yeah.
Or it had to be because Reese came back. It had to be that way.
They kept recasting, the John Connor character.
Oh, yeah.
So that maybe that is like it was different sperm.
It's different. Yeah, exactly. No matter what. Well, the whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what it should have been is that she should have gone to like a sperm bank, and it would have been a donated thing. So you never knew who the dad was. And so that way it never mattered who she slept with. It would have always been the same kid.
Yeah.
But the fact that, it had to be that she had to have slept with Reese back at that time and had that kid.
Yeah.
Because Reese came back.
See, I think that's what they're going to do.
Paradox.
I think that's what they're doing with the next one is because they went back and either they slept with each other at a different time. She has a girl instead of a guy.
Oh, that's why it's a girl.
Yeah.
It's because
she's Joanna Connor.
Joanna. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the whole thing too, right? Of
want to happen in this next one was this Terminator 13 or whatever. Yeah. So they what I wanted to happen was that I forgot where I was going with this.
I don't know what you're going with this. Okay.
I forgot. Let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, but yeah, so you have time travel. You have it obviously with like we were saying, Hollywood uses it as just a bad way to move the script along or to change the script. It's never used as actual
a
method
way
of storytelling.
Of knowing of having the characters come up with the ending.
Right.
By fast forwarding and going into the future.
Well,
it's like the scene in Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Let's fast forward to the end so we know where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, and you even have, you can't talk about time travel without talking about like Back to the Future. And even that has a problem, right? Of the whole, especially in part 2 of going to the future, you got to come with me back to the future. It's your kids, Marty. It's your kids. And it's like, why does he have to go with you to the future to fix the kids?
Because he has
in the future?
He has to take the place of the sun because he's a spit.
That's way too many things to think of. And he can take out a TV dinner and heat it up. That's what he can do.
He's a man.
He's a man.
Okay. All right. Back to the future.
Back to the future.
All right. So we were talking about the hole that you are saying is in Back to the Future.
Oh yeah, well the whole thing of having to bring Marty to the future.
I could explain this.
Okay, explain it.
Okay, so he brings back Marty because he looks like his son, right? Right. But as we saw, that his son had a hard time being able to say no to Griff, which causes the whole problem, right? And so that's why he has to knock him out and put him behind the counter. Right. So Doc probably had already tried that, telling the son just to go in there and say no.
Right.
Went back, did it. The son just kept doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Because you notice when they go back, he knows exactly when the rain stops. Remember? Like right on the tick.
Well, because they're going back to the future. Yeah. Well, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah. He's been
back several times.
He
knows the whole thing.
Yeah.
So he's tried everything, and the only option he has is to bring back Marty and be his son.
Well, but the thing would also be is you go back to the past Marty and you say, hey, why don't you raise your kid where he can say no to Biff? That's all he has to do. That's it.
How do you tell someone to make your son brave?
Or, hey, why don't you move out of Hill Valley where he doesn't have to deal with Biff?
Yeah. Now, the thing is they were probably making a statement because in the beginning of the first Back to the Future movie, Marty was a little timid himself. It was that whole experience that made him a little bit more.
Yeah,
And that's why they probably added that element in the second one, that he hates it when people call him chicken.
right.
So, but that is a genetic thing that was passed on to his son. And
Yeah,
his son
yeah.
didn't really
The
get to have that
timidness,
experience.
yeah.
But then that would be a great sequel right there, is that son having the same thing. If they
Yeah.
were going to do a reboot, just have it the son doing the exact same thing that his father did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But instead of going back to 1955, going back to 1985,
Yeah.
right? Like, that would be more.
Yeah.
That would be more.
That would be a good
yeah.
little either offshoot little short movie, on NBC or something. Yeah.
Well, because also, right, like you could do that. Because I know they were trying to be funny by making it where when he would travel to either Western times, or his son looked just like him, or his
great grandfather.
His great grandfather
looked just like him. His great grandmother also looked just like his mother.
Yeah. And I get the humor of that.
Yeah.
But from the original Back to the Future, his two parents didn't look anything like him.
Yeah.
Right? So you could have where you have a Back to the Future that has a different looking son and goes back.
Well, technically,
into those things.
the old Western parents are his mom, their mom, and then the next mom, right? So there was a generation in between. So the next past generation would probably look like the one.
Well,
like
yeah.
his own
The whole
parents.
thing is the
Yeah.
his parents should never come back.
Yeah.
No one should look like his mom.
No. Like when you go through your genealogy, you look like way back when. Sometimes you'll find a family member that looks.
Yeah.
But it's not always the parents. It's probably like a brother or something.
Yeah. It's not always the parents, and it's always like, genetically speaking, you're not going to have two people that look kind of alike that make the same. All of a sudden Marty comes and his mom looks like the aunt. Like that's.
Well, they also added a giant river that runs through Hill Valley that never existed in the first one.
Yeah. All of a sudden there was a river, and then they added. There were a lot of holes. I mean, there were a lot of just script. We just need to make it move.
Yeah.
And again, Hollywood. That's what we were originally talking about with that. How Hollywood doesn't know how to use time travel as time travel. They use it as a way to just move stories, a reason for characters to do whatever in the story.
So you could do a sequel to Back to the Future and never use the DeLorean, never use the time machine at all.
No, you can do that.
Like just him trying to make a band.
No.
That's it. That's the whole movie.
No.
Just a simple.
I'm
simple
saying
film.
the reason why the time travel was there. In the first one, made sense, right? Because he went back accidentally and made changes accidentally to his future. And to avoid the paradox, he needed to rebuild the past to match his future that he was headed towards, or that he was losing. Everything else after that, 2 and 3, made no sense. There wasn't an accident. Well, I guess the 2 to 3
was
was
a
an
building
accident.
on the first accident.
Yeah, but from 1 to 2, there was no accident for him to go to the future. That was not a requirement. There was no reason for him to go to the future.
No, it wasn't included.
Doc could have literally came back and said, on this date, on this time, tell your son or keep your son out of the thing. That's it. Because Doc going back to 1985 Marty was already it's the same thing like going back to 1955 Marty.
Doc should have said that. Like you should have said, or Marty says like, well, why can't I just do that now? He goes, Marty, check your pocket, and he opens up the pocket, and there's a letter from the doc. That tells him, make sure your son. He goes, Marty, I already tried that. You didn't do
or
anything.
you have a second doc show up.
Yeah,
that's going to tell him. And a second him come out and they realize like, we did already do this,
Yeah, no, not like I think just the fact that Marty would already have had that letter in his hands, like don't open until the 2015.
Right.
And then he's like, oh, I guess we did try it.
Yeah. Well, the thing is I guess the memories do kind of, no, they don't connect. Memories don't connect in their time. in their time travel, because when Marty went to the future where he had the truck, he didn't know the truck was there. When he opens the garage door.
No. See, this is what everyone gets wrong with.
What is it, Joey?
This is what they get wrong with
What
the
does
whole.
everyone get wrong with that?
All right. So when he goes back in time and fixes his parents' situation,
Correct.
right? Now, when he comes back, he sees a Marty go off into the future again. He sees that same
Correct.
thing. So that
Correct.
Marty is a different Marty than who he is.
Yes,
right?
yes.
When he comes back and sees that Marty, the only reason that Marty's taken off is because the dog calls him and says, "Can you meet me at the Twin Pines Mall?" So the dog had to do it again.
Right.
He did it again, and he told that other Marty to do the exact same thing the other Marty did.
Yeah.
Right. So when he's
So
coming back into that timeline, he's coming back when he sees that Marty go off and he sees the doc get shot. He sees that he's wearing a bulletproof vest. That is the new.
So that's
timeline.
you.
So he's taking place.
Yes, but you are reinforcing what I just said, though.
No.
Memories don't. He doesn't have a memory of that new timeline.
He's not that Marty. The Marty
Correct.
that left is the one that has the.
Yeah.
memories.
Now, where does that Marty go?
He's off on another thing.
On another adventure with his own memories, his own things.
Timeline.
So, in other words, this new Marty in this that sees the truck, has no memory of that whole new timeline. That the other Marty lived.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
The new Marty doesn't, because he is his own.
Well, he's the original Marty.
But if we follow that other Marty who took off, he has the whole memory.
That's what I'm saying.
He was raised by his rich parents.
Yes. That's what I'm saying is. Yeah. The original Marty never gets the new Marty's memories. He never experienced it
because they are literally now two people.
Yes, there are two people.
He's just literally taking his standing in his spot.
You're saying exactly what I'm saying. Is that I'm saying?
There's no way he could have got his memories if they're two different.
Yes,
people.
there are. That is correct. That's what I'm saying. That's the type of time travel they have. It splits off. Mm-hmm. You don't share the new memory. You go. He goes back to the future. Yeah, there's another Marty that leaves.
I don't think there's any way, if he went back, there's no way he could have a memory of what's being changed in the future.
Here's the thing, though, right? You look at it like this. He has the picture, which is a memory from the future.
It's a document.
It's a document, but it actually changes that future, his timeline, right? It's erasing his timeline.
It changes his present.
Right. It's changing his present.
Yes,
his present, even though his present is back in 1955. 85. No, it's back in 19... No. At the time he's looking at the photo, it's 1955.
But when he picked up that picture, when he had the picture, it was in his present time.
In the present time of
1985.
1985A.
Yeah.
And he was seeing 1985B start to take it over. But he had no memory of what, because when the brother disappeared, he still remembered the brother. Mm. And when the sister disappeared, he still remembered the sister. He remembered that he had them. They weren't disappearing.
He's not going to, the document is the only thing that's changing. He doesn't, like, as
his hand starts to fade.
As he's starting to fade, he's probably internally forgetting the thing, but he's not going to verbalize it.
Right.
You know? So we don't know if he forgot as well, but he probably doesn't start forgetting until he starts fading. And
right.
And it all happens
then
that.
Then it all is connected. Yeah. Well, the thing is why is it slowly fading? It should have always been instantaneous. Reasons. Yeah, exactly.
No, again, it all depends on the ratio of the change of time and how far back
the thing
you
is,
are.
The reason why they're disappearing is not because it's catching up to him at 17 years old. Mm-hmm. It's catching up to their birth. Yeah. They no longer exist because their parents weren't together. Yeah. And it's catching up to those times.
It's like and the Odyssey. Remember when he goes to the island with the sirens?
Yes.
The time changes, spans differently on the island. So like 1 minute is actually 7 years.
Well, yeah.
So then that's what's happening. We don't know the ratio of when he's back in time, how quickly is time changing for him when he's back in time.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, though, well, they're using the type of time travel that is you're creating alternate either futures or pasts or presents.
Because if that's true, when he went back, he should have just been back in the future and just had a memory.
Well,
of it.
no, he still has to experience the thing. He still has to go and change it.
That's
and,
why the change happens over time rather than immediate.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is it happens over time, yes, but at the same time, it's not a fading thing.
Yeah,
it's an instantaneous change
in
when
the
it does
moment when he's in the past, like when he's
Yeah.
watching his dad being pushed away and when he's trying to go dance with his girl, right?
Yeah.
Since in that moment, time is able to be changed by every passing moment. So every passing moment, things are changing for him, for Marty up on stage.
Right.
So that's why it's not happening immediately. It's because in that present
Well,
moment,
yeah.
George McFly has all control of what happens to Marty.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, yes.
You get it?
I get that.
Yeah.
And again, you're trying to prove a different point than what I was trying to do. You actually changed. Well, because I was just trying to say that mentally, nothing changes.
Well, we don't know.
No,
There's no little soliloquy from Martin McFly saying, "I am forgetting."
No, we know because when he gets to the truck, he never remembered the truck.
He didn't.
So it showed that timeline.
No. He doesn't know because the other Marty, from the changed future, is the one that got the truck. Right. He's replacing that Marty, not by.
No. I understand that. That's what I'm saying is
on someone else's life.
But it showed that memory doesn't get changed, so he will always remember his brother and his sister from his timeline.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
and so even when it was erasing and changing, yes, over time, but the memory was still there to him. It's just the timeline that was changing. That alternate or not alternate, but that future A was disappearing because what created it was being changed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I know it's not instantaneous.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's also like with looking at like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, right? And when they made the joke and the running gag of like, well, we have to remember in the future to come back to this time and leave the keys over here.
I hope they do that in the third one because they don't show that in the movie.
Oh yeah,
because they're like, remember a trash can, and then we don't see him go back and do the trash can.
Yeah, we don't see the.
And then that would be great. Right at the very end of Bill and Ted 3, they're like, oh man, the key's in the trash can.
Yeah. And so, so in other words, but that happens. Same type of thing where the keys don't spontaneously appear there, like way earlier. Yeah. They only did it when they remembered to actually go back and do it. Then the keys were there. So as time was going by, the trash can was empty until they remembered that they have to go do it. Mm-hmm. And then the trash can had the keys in when they put them in.
So the keys would only show up if in the future they remember.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that
the keys only show up from the time they put them in there.
That they're going to remember, they will show up.
Yeah.
So there's no way they can forget if it shows up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it doesn't matter when they do it. They could do it.
Yeah, they could do it
on their deathbed. They
could they could do it literally later.
Or they could have someone else do it.
Which literally could be one of the storylines. Is to tell their kids, okay, you have to go back. Let me give you a list of things you have to do. They have to go back, and then through the movie magic, they make it actually go back through those scenes, and you see the thing kind of.
I think that's why they're doing, because that's what every movie's doing now.
Yeah,
they're doing this retro Last Action Hero thing where they're just going back and showing you all the scenes that these people have been in. Yeah,
Yeah. And so that's I mean that's the whole the different ways of doing it. Time travel. Mm-hmm. One where it does change the memory, the other where it doesn't change memory. Forget with the with the end game thing, because that's why it was screwed up. They had nothing they stuck to, right? Because Back to the Future, it wasn't memory changing. Mm-hmm. It was literally timeline changing.
The Hulk's explanation is, how can I change my future by going into the past if my present is with me in the past when I go into the past?
Right.
So there's no way I could change my own history. So there you go. We could do whatever we want now.
Yeah.
But then if that's true, then if he takes something from the past and brings it into the future, then how does that even happen? There's no way you could bring something from the past, because what you're doing in the past, there's no way you could have it affect your future.
Yeah. Well,
and if that's true, then why do they have to go back and return all the stuff?
Return all the stuff. Why do they have to return it? Well, and that's the thing, right? It's like, if they go back, well, that's the thing, is this the Bill and Ted thought. Because they're like, okay, if we go back and take the stones, I haven't seen the movie, I don't really know exactly. If we go back and take the stones, bring them to the future, use the stones, and then take them back to the points where we took them from, it'll still happen. Because from what I understand, the snapping still happened. It still had to happen.
No. So the only reason they were getting the stones, they came up with the idea that we are only going to bring back the people we lost in this time. They have been gone for 5 years.
Yeah.
And all we're doing is bringing them back now. We're leaving everything exactly the same.
Everything has to stay.
How
if they
the
change
glove
it
knows how to understand these vague statements, I have no idea.
Well, it's magic, yeah.
What is very weird is that in the movie, Tony, it's established, you could just walk up to the gloves and then rip them off and then put them on your own glove.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's just true. Go back to Infinity War, that timeline. Walk up to Thanos and just pull them off. You only have to go to one time.
Yeah.
Just have all the Avengers show up and then they all rip them off.
Yeah.
Have Thor cut off his head or something.
Yeah.
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 And that was the other thing. I don't know. So when the movies nowadays, they are doing character assassinations where they are doing things. They have the characters suddenly become very irrational. They do something just so the plot could happen.
So the plot,
And then, so for the first half of the movie, Thor is all depressed that he didn't go for the head rather than hitting him in the chest. Right?
Yeah.
He starts drinking because he didn't go for the head and hit him in the chest instead.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't know why you guys are still sticking to this idea. It was stupid that he would throw the thing into his chest in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
He should have thrown it straight at the hand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, what were you trying to do?
Yeah. What were you aiming for?
Yeah.
If they have proven that he's very, he can be very particular where he throws it. It's not like throwing,
because he throws it from a distance, hits him in the chest, then he lands right in front of him, and then he pushes the axe further into his chest.
Yeah.
It's like, why didn't you cut off his arm?
Oh, yeah.
Cut off his head.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? And then they are sticking with that stupidity.
Yeah.
And having him linger with it for the first half of Endgame, right?
Yeah.
But it was completely irrational and out of character. And the only reason that Thanos was able to do the snapping in the first place, because out of character, Quill goes over and punches him in the head.
Yes.
Which unlocks his memory block or memory whatever.
Yeah, from the girl.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but number one, Quill is just like Han Solo. He always shoots first. There's no reason why he would punch him rather than shoot him.
Yeah.
Because he always is quick to pull those guns out. So they only did Ellie.
Yeah.
So everything that happened in Endgame could have easily happened right there without any time travel.
Yeah. It was.
If you're just going to kill Thanos, why drag it on?
Why drag it on?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's a part of the. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, like we're saying with time travel, using that and especially with a lot of superhero stuff. A lot of superhero stuff, even it's the same thing with time travel, where they use it, like they use the superhero powers or the wizard powers or whatever, the magic, to just do whatever they want to do in the story, and it has no cause and effect. It has no reason. That's why it's there. It's like it. The time travel happens because the script wants it. The fact that they can take the stones off now, it's just because they want the script to do that, and the fact that they bring, what's her name? Captain Marvel they brought her out as this character just to bring her into the movie and kind of just have her leave.
Mm-hmm. The thing
And
is,
it's like-
she would have been able to withstand the power of the glove.
Yeah.
Why they didn't have her do
Yeah.
it. I have no
Why
idea.
did Tony have to die
Yeah.
for that? Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
I guess we have to start saying
Yeah.
it. You know what?
Yeah.
Like, why did he have to die when, you literally had...
Because they wanted him to do the cool line of, "I'm Iron Man."
Oh, well, yeah. Well, his contract was done.
And why did they have the glove? Why were they making the glove go from one side of the battlefield to the other? See, I need to go watch it again because I don't know what happened to the original Gold Glove and why Tony had to make a Stark Industries
The original
glove.
gold glove, from what I remember, the original gold glove that Thanos was wearing, when he did the snap, it was damaged. It was no good anymore. And that was it. Again, magic.
No, he did the snap to destroy the stones. He didn't destroy the glove.
Who did the snap to destroy the stones?
Thanos in the beginning of the movie. Because they were trying to find Thanos, and they had all these sensors, with like these huge satellites, and they sensed a rift in time and space, and it was him using the stones again. And so they go over and find him, and they find out that there's no stones on the glove, and he's like, "I used the stones to destroy the stones. That way, what I did could not be undone."
Oh, I see. What you're saying.
Right?
Yeah.
And so then, but I remember the glove was still there because they picked it up. And they're like, "Oh, damn, no stones."
Yeah, no stones. Yeah.
But I'm like, use the glove.
But the glove is broken.
The glove's not broken. It just doesn't have any stones on it.
Well, it looked damaged.
I do not remember.
Yeah, you have to. All I'm knowing is by the end of the first one. The end of the first one, when he did it, the stones. I don't even think they were gone. I think they were still on it.
No. At the end of Infinity War, they were still on it because he hadn't destroyed them yet. He didn't destroy them until Endgame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, I always have problems with superhero ideas, storylines.
I was
anyway.
listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson weigh in on the movie, and he was trying to logically figure out how Captain Marvel works as a superhero.
Yeah.
And she's able to go at light speed from one side of the galaxy to the other.
Yeah.
But he was saying that what she does is what's called like a quantum portal or something like that.
Yeah.
Where she's in tap with the entire universe.
Right.
So she could pop in and out wherever she wants
Yeah.
to.
It's not light speed.
But the thing is,
It's
that means
wormholing.
she's able to control the quantum realm,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So why do they kick her out of the movie when she could have easily? She should have been the one that says, "Hey, I know how to do that. Let's just do
That
it."
was the whole reason. That's why I thought they had the movie
Have her.
first and had her, because I thought she was going to be the key to it.
Mm-hmm.
But when literally it's like, no, the key to it was the ones we already saw.
She should have been the one that came up with the idea for the time travel because they
Yeah.
very stupidly they're like, "How do we do this whole time travel thing?" Because Ant-Man says, "I was in the quantum realm and I came out and it was 5 years later."
Yeah.
Right. So then he knows there's a way of time traveling. Right. But then they're like, "All right, who should we ask about this?" And they immediately go to Iron Man, and Iron Man says, "I don't want anything to do with this." Then they go to the Hulk, and I'm like, "Why didn't you go to the Hulk first? He's more of a scientist than."
Well, Iron Man's a scientist too.
No, he isn't, because there's a scene in Iron Man 2. There's like, "When did you learn about quantum physics?" Last night, right? So he didn't know until like that movie, which was supposed to be like less than a few years up until Infinity War, So he's not a master at it, and he's not like a full on like PhD on that subject.
Well, yeah.
But it didn't make any sense that they would go to him.
No, they should have went to Captain Marvel. They should have made her more of a.
Oh, she was busy helping other planets.
I know. It just.
Only call me for emergencies.
Yeah.
Or when the audience accepts me to be on screen.
Well, what they're trying to do is I think they're trying to set up for the idea that the whole idea of Endgame and all that in the larger schemes of the universe was nothing. There are bigger things that are coming.
Yeah.
And that's why she has to go. And it's like, yeah, No, but again, right? It's then that means like magic is coming, or like bigger
well,
thing,
the only reason they cut her out is the Captain Marvel did so badly.
Yeah.
It had such
they realized like that it might have
because
she would have only brought down the movie.
They shot two different versions, one where she was a major part, and then one where she wasn't.
Yeah.
And this one is so lazily done of cutting her out of the film that it was very obvious that why she was there, because people actually enjoyed the movie more because she wasn't in it as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
yeah.
It's
And I thought they were trying to reveal in the Captain Marvel movie, because the Tesseract that they use to make that she gets her powers from, they hid it somewhere in that timeline, right?
Right.
So I thought she was going to mention, hey, yeah, I know where there's a Tesseract, and then they would cut to the Captain Marvel movie. Right, and you see now there's two Captain Marvels in the scene, and she's like going to go get that.
That would have made made a better thing to tie in to the previous movie.
You know what would have been cool? Just undo Captain Marvel altogether, and right before the ship explodes and she gets hit by it, they just walk in and they pull it.
Yeah,
it never explodes, and she never turns into Captain Marvel.
Or that's how they could have wrote her out of Endgame.
Yeah,
is have Purple Man.
Yeah,
Thanos. Go back and do that.
Yeah.
Go back and go, nope. And then that way it would have took her out. They would have been like, oh, so then it would have built her up just to have her literally taken out right away in a more less cocky way of, only call me her in emergencies. And it's like, yeah, this is an emergency.
She says that because she's busy, but when they cut to her and she's calling back to Earth on a hologram, she has cut her hair very short. And I'm like, when did you have time to do that? It's like gelled, and it's like doing a Brian thing.
Well, that's the whole thing, too. I've never understood in all superhero things. Because they have the Hulk gets a beard. They have Superman gets a beard. Or they have characters get a haircut. Or they get a beard gut. These superhero-like characters. And you're like, how did they cut their hair? If their hair is just as invulnerable as they are, you can't cut their hair. They can't grow or they could grow facial hair, let's say, because the only way you grow facial hair.
Banner cuts his hair before he turns into the Hulk. Does the Hulk also get his hair cut? Or does the hair grow out again? And does it shrink again when he comes back into
That's a good question. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because in Ragnarok, the Hulk had like a 5 o'clock shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where did that come from? You're right. Like, did he...
So if he stays the Hulk for a certain amount of time, his hair continues to grow.
Yeah.
So that means... Because in Endgame, he's at a diner talking to kids, and he's now all-time Hulk.
Yeah.
All the time.
Just stays the Hulk.
So, but he has no stubble on his thing.
Yeah.
So that means he's shaved.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Again.
And are they like super prescription glasses that he's wearing?
Yeah. It's the whole thing of just like, I've never liked superhero characters.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Well, see, the thing is, I don't see what the new movies now are. They're trying to really go into realism.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so then I'm thinking this leads for the opportunity for us to be critical of the film because you are trying something different. Like, it's a comic book, right? I'm like, then why do you keep mentioning scientific formulas and principles?
This only happens because of this principle.
Yeah.
And when they do that, and it's like, well, that's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. It doesn't hold up long enough in your world to actually apply.
Yeah.
You're just saying it because you want.
The only reason they're doing this realism thing is National Geographic and the Discovery Channel are using all these computer graphics to do these realistic kind of like destructions of dystopias and stuff. Like what would happen after an earthquake, right? So that now you have those computer programs lying around.
Right.
And Hollywood's like, okay, we'll use those too. But they're not. Those programs are not designed to be creative. They're designed to be as realistic as possible. But it doesn't match with the hero.
But
story.
that's the thing is, though. I don't think they're doing that. And I mean, they probably are, but to a degree, right? Mm-hmm. Because the whole thing is these programs, like you're saying, if they were to go in other words, it would make a movie go from costing $250 million. If you didn't have to make the program to make it, you were just getting it off the shelf, of previous stuff. It'd make the movie only cost like $50 million.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't have to spend near as much of research and all the stuff. And I don't think that's what they're doing. They're copying it. They're probably using that from the National Geographic and all that stuff. They're using the copy of it and they're modifying it a little bit, but I don't think they're using exactly their software.
Yeah, because do you remember like when movies were coming out and they would have like when Armageddon came out, they would have a special on National Geographic or Discovery Channel.
Right.
And they would go through all like the science of it.
Right.
So I have a feeling there was a connection,
Yeah.
where they were like, okay, we will give you these computer programs. That way you don't have to do so much work, being creative.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, I agree. And they probably definitely do a lot of copy and paste in certain ways because, like you're saying, like, I think the National Geographic did have where they were showing like dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the Matthew Broderick Godzilla came out and it had this, the Godzilla and the little Godzillas looked like the dinosaurs that they literally had in the National Geographic videos. Yeah. And then, and also if you looked at it, they're like, well, those look like velociraptors from Jurassic Park. Like it's like they're using the same. I mean, they have different movements, but they're using the same.
And then I was thinking about this the other day. Just maybe this is related, but since they have that CG program of buildings and stones and the crumbling of it, they're like, okay, we gotta use that in the movie. Oh, but a superhero movie, like you don't like if you think of the first Christopher Reeve Superman. There's not too many buildings crumbling in those films because he's a freaking superhero. He stops that from happening. Right. So what they're doing is excess. The hero is doing everything in excess. They don't use their surroundings to actually help. I remember in the fourth one, the bad guy, the wrestler, who was shooting a laser at him, and Superman rips off a side mirror of a car. Oh yeah. And then he deflects it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But see, that's him being like not using his own resources and depleting himself. It's just sort of like using his surroundings and like he's, like he'll tear off a mountain to stop a volcano or something like that. But so it's where the character is actually being clever rather than using his power in excess. Right. Which Captain Marvel crashes herself constantly into things to destroy those things. Right. Even though she is like, it won't hurt her. Yeah. But the thing is, it's you, even if you're like overly strong, like if you're a great samurai and you have all these like magical powers and stuff, you still kind of limit what you do. You keep it down. Like the old Chinese master would like just use a stick rather than using his sword. He'll never pull the sword out. Oh yeah. So they are using the CGI and the magic of the character in excess rather than downplaying him down to being a this overly powered person where he wants to destroy things rather than actually minimize the amount of power that he exerts on a daily basis. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? They are exactly it. They are doing the characters now, and I would even say not even superheroes anymore, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that CGI touches, right? Because I mean, I always think of Die Hard 4, when the guy picked him up and like flung him to the side against the.
I think you're thinking of 3.
No, is it 3 or 4?
No, it's 3. Remember, that's in Die Hard with a Vengeance, right? And he was twirling him. And he smacks him into the side of the thing.
Oh yeah, but
'Cause
nonetheless, it was a
Thor is-
CGI. It was a
Thor is when
CGI.
he used a car to blow up a helicopter.
Well, yeah, but the whole thing of like using CGI that's it's what they use to make that scene happen.
See, the problem with CGI is the programs are passed on to when I say program is like that exact scene done exactly the same way. It's constantly passed on because it's cheaper. Because if you want to build another one, you got to pay a guy to make up another scene. So like the scenes that I'm constantly seeing is when a car is flipping through the air.
Oh yeah.
It always goes right over the hero's head.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, how many times am I going to see that?
Yeah.
It's because it's easier to use that program that's already been established to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And it got a lot of attention the first time. Why didn't we do it again?
Do it again.
Like, see, and this is where Star Wars has got themselves into a thing. Like when you start doing all these superhero movies, how are we going to do that? How are we going to have a car out of nowhere in a Star Wars movie flip over?
Well, that's why you see now in the episode 9 coming out of her flipping over a TIE fighter or flipping onto or whatever she's about to do.
Yeah,
that's the car. That's the it's the same thing, but they just finally figured out how to put a TIE fighter in.
Well, see, and that like even that that's probably not going to be in the movie.
No,
because that's what they do now. Is you just have to pray everything you see in the trailer is going to be in the movie.
Yeah,
that's what people are saying.
Well, you have to pray, but the understanding is most likely it will not be in
because if you watch that scene, there was a scene that was cut out of the Last Jedi trailer.
Yeah,
where she's running at night with the lightsaber in her hand like this, and it's kind of like almost raining, right?
Oh yeah,
she's running like that, but that's nowhere in the movie. Yeah. It was in a cut scene. If you watch the way she's running in that trailer, it's that exact same scene. So I think they quickly came up with a scene that looked cool for the trailer that will not be in the film.
Yeah,
right. Exactly. And so they're like, "Oh, what can we do with this?" Because her running and then leaping back. The leaping back was just a CGI.
Oh yeah,
So they used the old clip of her running with the lightsaber, right? And then they CGI her flipping backwards. Yeah. And they're like, what should we have her do? I don't know. Just cut.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, too, that a problem that comes up with it is you have cartoons have directors, right? And a cartoon literally, since the dawn of time, you could do whatever you want. You could have anything happen any which way you want, right? Because cartoons could have done the bullet effect from the Matrix.
Oh yeah,
yeah. At any time they could have.
I think they did a couple of
scenes. They probably did.
Yeah, where they would just tap.
Yeah. Bugs Bunny would grab the bullet, and it would stop. Yeah. But the directors had an idea, had a script. It was grounded. That's why when you watch cartoons, you're not lost, right? You know it. Even though it's not real world at all, Looney Tunes is not real. Tom and Jerry's not real at all. But you get it because it's grounded on real things. When Tom got hit with the hammer, he would yell, and his body would react. It wasn't just Tom got hit with the hammer 15 times.
See, that's another thing, especially in Endgame. There was a lot of scenes where the characters were not reacting properly to what was happening
because they didn't know.
They didn't know what was going on. Yeah.
And now the problem is these directors that are used to directing reality get these CGI powers, and they don't know how to ground it in reality, even though what you're looking at is real. They're like, okay, yeah, it's real, but we're going to show the guy get punched 15 times in the face with an axe. And then laugh, and then go on fighting as if nothing happened.
Well, I was a huge fan of Xena and Hercules when it was on, and everyone laughed at that show. They saw it, said, "Oh, it's cheesy. The acting's bad. It's totally unbelievable with the fighting scenes. Yeah. You would kick someone and they would fly a million miles. They would hit a wall. They would just kind of shake themselves off and they would continue fighting, even if they were human. Right. But that's what we have now.
Oh yeah,
and I'm like,
that's all they do now.
But what I noticed is this thing in history where someone comes up with some idea that's different, and then people say the word, shit on Yeah. They shit.
Oh, shit on it.
They
Yeah.
shit on the idea, right?
Yeah.
And then they wait for time to pass, and then they just copy what they were making fun of.
Yeah.
This is what they did with like the prequels. Like,
Oh,
the prequels, they look so awful. They relied way too much on CGI. But ever since then,
That's all
we get. And
all we get.
Endgame looked just as bad as all the prequels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I agree that they do that. Yeah. I mean, it's just like all things, you know. You come up with something new,
Mm-hmm.
and people shit on it. 10 years later, everyone's doing the same shit as you.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're like,
well, they watch that new idea and they're like, they look around, they see everyone like cheering and liking
Yeah.
it, and they're like, I need to have to bite off of this fame.
oh yeah,
All right, what I'm gonna do is make him seem like he's the worst director ever.
oh yeah,
And then when people start to chant, I hate this movie, then they're like, okay, we'll do a film.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
It's like prequels. Why did he go back? That's so confusing. Every movie now is a prequel,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But they keep
yeah,
shitting on the idea.
yeah, exactly. Right, like you have 20 years ago. I mean, you know, there's not a lot being done now that people are shitting on.
Mm-hmm.
Right, not a lot.
Well, yeah, because it's all Disney films.
Well, it's all the stuff. It's kind of like, okay.
Well, I think I know where you're going.
Yeah,
Continue.
the idea of standing on the shoulder of giants.
Yeah.
Right. If all you do is ever do that, if there's no more giants that come along,
Yeah.
there's no more shoulders to stand on.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of what I see now going forward. There's no more giants. So like in 10 years from now, there's nothing for them to look back on and to copy.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of us now, all of the major, not us, but the major motion pictures, we're copying stuff that was done 10, 20 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Or more, but you know what I mean? It's all copy. So 10 years, 20 years from now, they can't look back at us and go, oh yeah, I'm going to make something from the 2019, 2020 era. And it's like, oh no, I actually have to go back 40 years to make something if I'm going to stand on the shoulder of giants.
Mm-hmm.
And cause yeah, there's no giants to stand on now.
Yeah.
There's nothing to,
Well,
to-
there's a
to
weird
propel
thing
from.
about the 30-year mark. Every 30-year interval, they like when Lucas did the prequels, he was referring and doing a lot of tributes to the old 30s and
Yeah.
40s films, right?
Yeah.
But if you think about it, 1977, 30 years before, was the 40s, right?
Right.
But now you go into the modern films, like if you look
Yeah.
at Force Awakens,
Yeah.
there's a drop scene where the troopers are in a drop ship.
Right.
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 But 20 years before, you had Starship Troopers doing the exact same scene.
Yeah.
Right. So then every 20 years, it seems like they're constantly going back.
Right.
But because Lucas was referring to that specific pioneer time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if he did another movie now, he's not going to do Starship Troopers. He's going to still go back
Right.
to the 30s.
Right.
That's the pioneer years of television, of filmmaking.
Yeah.
You know, but
and there's a difference, like we've said it before, of doing a ripping off
Mhm.
versus an homage.
yeah.
You know, and what Lucas was doing was an homage, was just I'm going to borrow from this. That is it.
He's borrowing from what his special effects company made. Because like in
well, it's
Phantom Menace, there was scenes that were reminiscent of like the.
yeah, as you go forward, if you know, we could wrap it up with the idea of time travel, right?
Mhm.
Of Doc comes back from the future and tells Marty, "Hey, your kids screwed up. You gotta come with me to the future, right?" And if someone were in the future to come back to directors of today,
Mhm.
so you got to come back to the future because movies are screwed up,
Mhm.
and they'll be like, well, what do we have to do different? It's like, well, we have to go back farther into the past
Mhm.
because there's nothing for you to do in the future because there's nothing to pull back from
Mhm.
30, 40 years, you know, from the future time,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Which would be now sort of thing. It's even at the rate it's going, you would have to go pull back farther back to get something to keep producing.
Well, and if
something
you look at the history of movies, ever since the 30s, they've been remaking the same film
movies are always
over and
remade.
over again, literally with the same title and everything.
Yeah.
And so, and like even we were talking about Terminator, the first Terminator movie, the idea of a robot that goes insane and starts killing everybody, that is not new. But the thing is, what Terminator was a better version of those older films, that older idea.
Yeah.
And so back in the 80s into the 90s, there was a lot of good, better versions of that idea. It was finally like realized in a real way. Like Independence Day was a better version of War of the Worlds, right?
Oh
so,
man, I gotta get going.
Yeah. So the idea that you could make a better version of that better version is what's wrong with the world today, or in filmmaking.
Yeah, because they're not making better versions.
No, they are making remakes that they think is better, and all they're doing is modernizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not making a better version. They're just making
a
more modern
Independence Day
version.
had a story.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays they're like, okay, how can we incorporate everything that's politically going on in today's world?
Right.
And also like, how can we make it worse? You know, like, where they're just doing the scenes, but they're forgetting to connect the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a Michael Bay film.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. That's we've exactly. They are making movies now and not thinking how they, from scene to scene, how they connect.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really think that way, because no movie is shot scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. They're shot out of order.
Yeah.
So you have to know how they connect.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, how you shot and had your actors and characters and story behave for scene 5, 15, and 32, when you shot those, if you shoot 1, 17, and 38 in different, with a different mindset, now they don't at all connect. Nothing, you know, then your movie feels all out of whack. You know, you shot a comedy, then you shot a horror movie, and then you shot it, you know, and it's like, but they're not seen together that way.
But
you
if
know?
you, like nowadays, you could totally change people's facial expressions. You could change their dialogue. You can change their lips and stuff. I would think movies would be more perfect now. But now they're still horribly edited, and they are not making those nuanced like changes that they could to make the better story.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is they're using those powers, the ability to change and do that stuff, to fulfill the checklist from the focus group. You know, like they're like, oh yeah, you know what, you know, the focus group, we just did a test and we found out that they don't like how she's not smiling in that scene. And they're like, well, you know, that scene, that's her parents' funeral. That's why she's not smiling. Oh, well, the focus group wants to see her smile. So they go in and they make her smile for no reason, you know, except because the focus group said.
And then 50% of the audience loves to smile and the other 50 doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. And they just go, okay, that's fine. We're just going to go with that. And that's, the problem is like a lot of stories, when you give someone, which is what directors have now, godlike powers. They can do anything they wanted. They don't know what to do. And so they just
don't know what to do. You take polls and you find out what the audience wants, and you just put those random scenes in there. And you hire 15 directors or writers to connect those scenes together.
Yes. You get a mess of a film. Well, that's the whole problem. Is that's why it's a mess. It's always a mess of a film, especially nowadays, is because they don't know, the director doesn't know how to, or is not allowed to direct. You know, they're having to do just whatever I mean, I know a movie has to make money, but they're making it literally only to make money. They're not doing it to fulfill a story, to fulfill an art, to get an idea or something out there. They're not doing it for that reason. They're doing it because, you know, so let's make an entire movie about cats.
Yeah.
And people love Transformers because that movie made $1 billion. So let's make transforming cats. You know, that's kind of, that's even more creative than what they would do because they, you know. But that's all they do now. They don't, they're not.
Yeah, and for some reason,
satisfy a quota.
They like to end story arcs and endings, because now they don't have endings. They just kind of leave it very vague.
Oh yeah.
Like the guy and the girl never kiss anymore.
No.
it's like, oh, we can't have that, So
Yeah,
now it's just like you're left like, okay, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't really know what it's supposed to mean.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the ambiguous ending now
Yeah.
is almost like the de facto standard.
Yeah.
Is every ending
But they're
now is
too
ambiguous.
scared to lean one way or the other story wise. They're like, okay, we just won't give an ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be safe all the way to the very end.
Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Yeah.
They're safe to the very end of the movie.
Yeah.
And it just
Because they constantly just have elements. Like the new Star Wars trilogy, it's just elements. There's no real like, okay, we're gonna be definite that this is what the characters are doing.
Right.
We're like, okay, we'll have Rey suddenly like Poe out of nowhere, right, and not go any further.
Yeah.
And they'll probably have her like someone else in the next one.
Yeah, exactly.
And it won't end with her kissing anybody.
Yeah.
There's like, so what's the whole? This is just a tease.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is like the movie Black Beauty, the original, not the weird stuff they made now, the original one, and the kid's running the race with the horse.
Yeah.
And the one with the better horse or the richer kid is pulling ahead, but he keeps looking back at Black Beauty catching up. And then the kid, I think, either crashes or loses the race because he kept looking back. He wasn't watching where he was going, right? Whereas Black Beauty, he just put his head down and they rode straight on as fast as they could. They won the race. And that's kind of this whole process of movie making now. You had directors before that were allowed to just put their head down and race as hard as you can to the finish.
Yeah.
However you are going to do it.
Yeah.
But now they're the rich kid on the other rich horse having to look back and figure out, like, what do the fans want? Well, what are fulfilling some agenda of one way or another. Or they're just, or they're just at the whim of whatever executive producer wants, or what their nephew wanted or what their niece wanted. And they're like, okay, well, we got to put that in too, and then the movie just isn't, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and people sit down to watch the movie, it's not a movie anymore. Like you said, it's a collection of scenes, of despondent, non-connected scenes that just are played back to back. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's not a movie. That's just, you could do the same thing with the YouTube